Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Perth Dialogues, a new conversation. And I'm so pleased to have my friend Adam Barry with us today. I've known Adam for a few years through many channels and conversations. But what struck me and so impressed me so much was he shared on his Facebook that he lost 19 kilos in 6 months, which got me very interested because I've been trying to lose equivalent amount of kilograms, 20 kilos, for so many years, but have not gone anywhere. And when I saw his story, I thought this is what I was looking to achieve. And because I know him personally, it's not a distant success story. Someone who does bodybuilding regularly, so someone which is distant. He is my friend. I can see that someone has achieved it in my circle. So I can do as well. And I think many of our friends will be in the same story, same age bracket, going through the same journey that they can probably relate to Adam's story. And I think they can take a lot from his story on how he's achieved it. So yeah, welcome Adam. And thank you for finding
Hey
the
Matt,
time
good to
and
be here.
giving your story.
No problem. It's really good to be here. Thank you.
Uh, So I just said that you are all the same, we are all in the same journey, same age group. So maybe let's start from where we are. Like, just tell us about what your life is, what you do for your work, so that people can relate to the same story.
Yeah, sure. So I just turned 40 last week. Getting a little bit older. Not able to get away with as many things health wise as I might have once done. So at that age, when a few things catch up with you, I run my own business. I'm a property developer. And my wife and I recently had our first child, little 10-month-old boy, Declan. So been a very exciting year, but a lot going on. And yeah, it keeps me quite busy. So managing health is one of my big values. I really aspire to stay healthy, but I need to do that in an efficient way because I don't have a lot of free time.
Good. So, like, we all are looking to become fitter and be like whatever the kind of body that we try to achieve. But what made you start on this journey? I know from your Facebook post that you have been doing some kind of exercises and things, but what made you do that inflection point from, say, point A to point B?
Yeah, great question. So, I would say I might just tell you a little bit about why I value health and what I've been doing up to the point that I decided to make some changes, which was about 6 months ago, as you said in the intro. So, um, I was lucky enough to grow up to be exposed to playing sport and getting a routine of exercising regularly, mainly through sport rather than a health specific thing. But that kept up some habits. I formed some early habits, and then when I was at uni, I did martial arts. And the good thing with martial arts is it gives you a lot of structure around exercise. It teaches you new things, so you get used to trying new things and learning new things in a structured environment with a teacher or a coach or however you like to express it. And fitness was a big part of the sort of the style I did. So you had to train 3 to 5 times a week, and taught me a lot about being fit and keeping myself in shape for a functional purpose. Um, I was at uni at the time, like I said. When I finished uni, I started working in an office job, and I was a bit shocked when I got there. Most people in that office from about late 30s onwards were overweight. And I remember just making a promise to myself that I didn't want to end up like that. I just, not as a aesthetic judgmental thing, but just it didn't seem very healthy to me. And I got a bit of a shock in my first year working from a desk that I started to put on weight because I didn't really. I know now that what was happening is when I was at uni, I would walk a lot just between classes, and I went to Curtin Uni in Perth, which is quite a large campus, and I studied 2 degrees at once, so, and the schools I studied at were on opposite sides of the campus. So I was walking up and down all the time. And I was still doing all the other exercise like I was doing while I was at uni, but I started to put on a bit of weight. And that started me sort of, I'd made that promise to myself, and it started me reflecting on, what I had to do to balance it out. So I started to pay a bit more attention to what I ate, and always sort of aimed to just stay healthy in whatever form I thought that was. And that was a bit ill defined at that point, but it was probably more around weight management. So that's sort of the start of where a value and some habits were formed. And probably through my 20s into my early 30s, I managed pretty well. And as I approached probably my mid to late 30s, I noticed I started to put on a bit of weight, and I was just having a bit of trouble shifting it or keeping it off. And my habits hadn't really changed around how I ate or the exercise I did. In fact, in a weird way, probably exercised more. I did got into long distance running, trained for a few marathons and half marathons where you burn a lot of energy. And when I was doing that, that was okay. When I stopped, I just noticed I had been putting on weight. And I sort of thought it must be maybe a bit of a medical issue because I was doing a lot of exercise and thought I was eating well. So I started an exploration down that path, getting blood tests and so on. And nothing really stood out to me as to, came back to say there was anything particularly wrong with me. I did do some reflection on my sleep and realised through doing a sleep study that I actually had mild sleep apnea. So I got some things done to fix that, but the weight issue was still there. So I'd really been looking for answers, and the turning point for me was, I'd been questioning what was going on, and the turning point for me was probably one of my friends, probably a mutual acquaintance of ours, Neil Gibb. He posted about a health program he'd just done, and he'd lost quite a bit of weight, got in a really good shape, and he talked about how they looked at blood work first to see where things were out of balance, balance that out with supplements, and then a bunch of other stuff around weight management and strength building. And that was kind of a light bulb moment for me. I thought, well, that's exactly what I've been looking for. Someone has put all that together, and I signed up in January. And as you said, a month or so ago, hit my goal, and probably in the best physical shape I've ever been. To be frank, and I'm 40. I think I'm in better physical shape than I was when I was in my early 20s, and that was with me exercising all that way through. So, yeah, been a really good outcome.
It is so interesting when you shared about that story because I have my own weight issues. But when my son plays cricket, so I have to take him to the cricket things, and I see him running so much and his so much stamina, it gives you additional stress that compared to him you're here, but then you're also actually you're here, you know. So I can relate to that very closely. You talked about that program, that specific program you joined. Tell us about more about that program, and did you do any research around that program before joining it?
Yeah, good question. Not really, but it was through a very warm referral. So I know Neil quite well. And one thing I admire about Neil is um, he values coaching and guidance from others. He does a lot of development, personal development, and I've done a number of courses that he's recommended to me, and I value his judgment. So I did to basic inquiry about obviously how it will work, what the results would be, the cost, but because I think I was a bit tuned into looking for something like that anyway. When you're really seeking something and it arrives, sometimes and you're ready to go. And I liked the answers they gave me. I'd seen the evidence through someone I knew personally, and I jumped on board, and the results started pretty quickly, so that helped as well. So that's how I got into it. I could talk about the program, but maybe people might be more interested in what I learned from it. Would that be a good way to go?
Yeah, sure. I think like you can touch briefly on the components of program in terms of, is it more nutrition based, or is it more exercise based, or is it something else?
Good question. What really really hit me with this program. It's called Six Pack CEO. If people want to know about it, they can Google it. I'm not here to promote it, but I'll just mention the name so people know what we're talking about. It's a US based program. There's a couple of things that really stood out to me about it. One, it is male specific. That's not to say that things don't exist for females or that the things that I did wouldn't work for women if there's female listeners. But when you're going for something like that, it's very important, I think, that you have work with people that are really targeting for you, and you is your gender and your age. I think is very important as well as your lifestyle. So, by the name Six Pack CEO, it gives you a few hints as to what they're looking at. They target business owners or busy professionals that want to get in really good shape. That's the six pack part. And they target people who are around 40, 50 years old is kind of their age. So that's going to be what they would recommend is going to be very different to what you might do if you're 20, maybe very different to what you might do when you're 70. There's difference between men and women, obviously hormonally, and all sorts of things happen to both genders when you get to around 40 or 50 with hormones and things, men as much as women too, which hasn't always been widely discussed. So that was very important. And the big thing that really stood out to me was it was holistic. So I'll talk about it in a minute when I explain what I learned, but a lot of things have to come together to optimize health. Health isn't just fitness. Health isn't just strength. Health isn't just weight. Health isn't just blood work either. We're in a fortunate time of life that there's a lot of focus around this at the moment and views around longevity and increasing health span rather than just lifespan. So being able to do things and enjoy your life as you get older. And they know that all those things count. Strength, nutrition, optimizing blood work and body function, and weight plays a big part in that as well. So that's really what attracted me to this. It was targeted specifically to me, and it was holistic, bringing a lot of different disciplines together.
Uh, that's an interesting part because, you know, at that juncture, someone can think that, oh, I've got this holistic plan and there's so much in there. So either it can motivate some people or it can give a shock that I've got so much to do in that particular period. How
Yeah.
did you motivate yourself that I am going to hit all those areas that they are telling me and achieve that target? It's not just one thing to do.
Yeah, good question. I didn't get too worried about the overwhelm because this particular program had a coach and a process where they told you what to do. And one thing I've really embraced in my life, has given me a lot of success, is coaching. And major, in most areas of my life where I have major breakthroughs, I work with a coach to do it. And right now I have a property coach, a business coach, I call a personal development coach, a swimming coach, a running coach, a strength coach, and these guys you call them a health coach. So obviously I do a lot of people coaching me. Sometimes a hockey coach when I play field hockey, but I'm not the best player, so I don't use them that often. The diminishing returns with coaching me in that space, but the reason I do that is that I like to go to an expert that understands me and offers a service provision that suits me and my profile as who I am in the world in terms of how I might want to run or how I might want to improve my health. And then I get them to tell me what to do, and then I do what they say. So that way I don't get too overwhelmed. They've got all the knowledge. They've spent the years figuring out how to bring all this stuff together in terms of what I did for health. All I had to do was do what they said. And then the other component is being in a group with other people doing it. So this program, it's US based, but it's very online. There's a lot of online interaction, and I don't know exactly how many clients they have, dozens and dozens, and everyone's doing the same sorts of stuff, and they update you when they celebrate success well. So you know when people are hitting milestones, and people in the group chats are talking about things, and you have a coach guiding you. And we had a network in Perth of about 4 or 5 of us doing it. And when you're in a group surrounded by other people working towards something like that, it normalizes it, and it just helps you focus on what you have to do that week. So yeah, I didn't get too overwhelmed about the different areas. I just kind of started at one point and put things in place, and 1 week at a time. And before I knew it, things had changed.
Um, Apart from like, would you say that because you had these coaches and you had this online group, you didn't need to bring in your own motivation on the table, because that's where many people fail, that you can't have that motivation to go through the whole program on your own.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you must have the motivation to start, and then having a group around you, coach or group, those sorts of things. Yeah, humans are social. We're social beings. Having others around you is the key. I used the word normalized before, but another way of looking at it is you're in the group, everyone else is doing it. You might feel unsure, but then you see someone who's just gone through the same thing, or you can ask someone a question or hear their story. And positive peer pressure is maybe a good way to look at it. That helps a lot.
So when you were going through this process, what everyday habits that you made, small changes, big changes, to get you across in your program or in general?
Yeah, look, I might talk a little bit about some of the things I learned that really helped me optimize and were surprising to me. So, as I said before, I was exercising 3 to 5 times a week, and I was aiming to eat healthy. Um, but once I started working with these guys who really knew what they were doing, a few things really stood out to me very quickly where I was slightly off target. And I think that's actually a big key to this, is really knowing what to pay attention to and what not to. Health is a very popular topic. We're in a very lucky position to live in countries like Australia, where we have an abundance of food, an abundance of food options. And the reality is we're actually most people are eating too much for their lifestyle. We're maybe a little bit sedentary, but it's actually the eating is more of the problem than the lack of movement, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So what really stood out to me is I actually had no benchmarks to describe what I thought I was doing. So I was exercising and eating healthy, but what does that even mean? Eating healthy is a very interesting concept. What does that mean? You know, we sort of have these concepts that float around about maybe home cooking is healthier than going out. Maybe vegetarianism is healthier than eating meat. Processed food versus non-processed food, but all those are still a bit general. One big thing these guys gave me straight away was a calorie target per day. Um, a concept that's been around in the health world for decades. I actually think a core concept, energy in, energy out. That's a very important relationship to how fat is put on and taken off. Something that's very much gone out of fashion in the last probably decade, particularly past 5, 6 years. I don't know exactly why. My theory is it's not very exciting. It's actually kind of hard work. Feels very much like a financial budget as well, doesn't it? If I told you, they said to me, Adam, you're going to lose weight, you can have 1,800 calories a day. There's my budget. Eat what you want within 1,800 calories a day. Now, a budget's not super fun in some ways, but I love budgets. And yeah, I mentioned before, I'm a property developer. I run my own business. I've been quite successful at property developing. We're not here to talk about that, but I have made, I'm financially independent from doing that. And I couldn't have got there without a budget. And I got to say, number one thing, if you take from this about losing weight, you're not going to get there without counting calories. You can do other things like fasting and avoiding certain foods, but that's all actually just techniques to ensure you don't eat too many calories per day. So that was a big thing. But it wasn't just calories. They also gave me a couple of macros to watch. Macronutrients is what that is. So protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Um, Make sure when you're losing a lot of weight, you don't want to lose a lot of muscle as well. So it's important you eat plenty of protein. It's important you eat plenty of carbohydrates for energy. Um, and fat, that's an interesting one. You need to eat some fat, but you don't want to eat too much. And you could go very deep on the nutrition side. That's another area where there's a lot of noise in this space. Micronutrients, how much sugar, salt, all of that. Interestingly, they didn't worry too much about that. Yeah, I'm not saying you don't get benefits from going into that, but that's more your one percenter optimization stuff. So what was very important and really helped me to get to where I wanted to get to was that these guys cut through the noise. They told me what to pay attention to, but most importantly, what not to pay attention to. Which actually, if you think of a lot of endeavors in life, is also a key. I'm a property developer. I need to read property markets. If I look at a market, there's lots of noise about different indicators, metrics, indices I could look at around a market. I typically only look at about four. Um, these guys gave me about four as well. So I think that was probably the biggest habit, was getting myself some benchmarks and metrics and knowing what to pay attention to. And once I had that, what's very interesting is what's going to be very hard to do if you're trying to diet is if it's too rigid around the type of food you can eat. So while it might sound pretty rigid, what I just said is that we're going to be counting calories and only looking at these macros. That gave me a lot of freedom to eat whatever I wanted. If I chose to have one meal or maybe two meals and just go to McDonald's for one of them and you know, and then just eat a bit more, I'd probably be a bit hungry during the day, but I could do it if I felt like it. And that meant that I could still go out to dinner, still have variety of food. So that helped a lot because I was in a calorie deficit of about 1,000 calories a day, 7,000 a week, and that roughly should equate to losing, for a man, losing about 1 kilo of fat a week. Um, so that was probably a big thing in terms of. I think you asked about what habits, but having those metrics and then watching what I was eating, that was a big game changer for me. Now I know what healthy is. Well, I have a definition for it. Now I know why I got fat. The reason I put on weight was that I was just eating too much on the weekends. I'd binge on the weekends, eat a lot of calories, eat less calories during the week, but not enough of a deficit to offset what was happening on the weekend. Year after year, there's 15 kilos more weight than you should have.
Uh, Apart from the nutrition, like how did your body change during the process? Like, is it a straight line benefit that you are getting, or is it a zigzag and depending on how you go, or how is it?
Yeah, good question. So, two things. There are two very distinct patterns with it. One, the weight doesn't come off in a linear fashion if you're using a scale to measure, because there's a lot of things that happen around your weight during the day. Water, in particular, you will put on and lose a couple of kilos a day just from water retention. So, very important to weigh yourself at the same time each day. I would do it first thing in the morning when I woke up. The good thing with that is you've just been through a sleep cycle, so that's a fairly consistent point. If you tried to do it during the day, well, you might have drunk water at a different time or eaten at a different time or whatever. Um, and there is fluctuation, but I would track more of the trend of the weight. So you look from Monday to Monday sort of thing, and you might see it goes up a bit and then down. But if you look from Monday to Monday, you would see your straight line. And it's interesting when you're losing a lot of weight like that your body, that really is a form of starvation. So your body has techniques to protect yourself from that. physiologically, it would feel like maybe you're stuck in winter, you can't get enough food. So it will start slowing your metabolism and doing certain things as well. So another interesting thing that these guys got me through, like I just would never work this out on my own, is that you lose weight pretty quickly, especially at the start. When you lose, you'll probably have been retaining water and you'll lose that pretty quickly, and then you'll lose steady weight, and suddenly you'll hit a plateau. You'll be feeling fatigued and cranky because you've been losing weight for probably 7 to 12 weeks, is roughly when this will hit for most people. And when you do, you have to stop for a bit. This was the counterintuitive part. If you hit that point, they wouldn't let me go more than 12 weeks without having what they refer to as a diet break. I'll explain what that is in a second. Or but before then, it could be 7, 8 weeks, you might just hit a plateau. You're not losing weight, you're feeling low energy, your moods are bad. Well, now it's time just to go for 2 weeks of maintenance calories. So one thing I didn't really explain is I talked about I had a calorie target. Well, how do you work out your calorie target? There are calculators online called the resting metabolic
Yeah.
rate RMR calculator. That'll tell you what your body needs to consume just if it's sedentary, not exercise. So that just gives you a baseline of what it is to live. To lose weight, you need to be in a deficit from that. I did about 1,000 calories a day. That's pretty extreme. I wouldn't suggest anyone just figures this out on their own. Like, go talk to dietitians and things. Now they probably won't recommend to do as much as me, but again, make sure you find someone who really understands who you are and what you want to achieve. There's nothing wrong with what I did, given I had people guiding me. I didn't have any health problems. I had a lot of health benefits. But a lot of professionals will fall off their chair if they heard what I did, but that doesn't actually say it was wrong. It might say they weren't the right fit for what I want to do. So that's how I figured out my calorie target. And when you hit these plateaus, you have to go back to your maintenance calories. So at least what you would need in a day just to not lose weight or put weight on, and do that for about 2 weeks, and that resets your body, resets your mind, resets your body, and then you can go back, and then you'll start losing more weight. And that was a very interesting thing because I think most people would hit that plateau and give up. I certainly would have if I tried to do it on my own. So that was one major change. Obviously, you're losing weight. There's ups and downs in your energy and mood. The second thing is muscle and strength. So I was strength training 3 times a week to preserve muscle. I still lost muscle mass, but didn't lose my strength. That's important to consider that if you're going to do that type of transformation. And a strength coach is someone who can help you through that, give you the appropriate programs.
Uh, uh, that's an interesting point that you said that once you start achieving, you have starved yourself for 12 weeks. So, and you have achieved some goals. So I think it's a kind of a good way to reward yourself that you go back to your maintenance calorie levels and then you start again.
Yeah, mentally, that's very important. Now, one thing I would also just point out, you're physiologically in starvation, but if you eat well, you won't. I was not hungry starvation through the day. I was actually quite surprised by that. I wasn't super hungry. Leading up to a meal, I get hungry, but that's natural. You should be getting hungry leading up to a meal. But I wasn't sitting there having eaten lunch and an hour later desperate to eat more. It was just eating those right nutrients, and things like vegetables are very good. They're low in calories. They've got other nutrients, and if you eat a lot of vegetables, it fills you up. It fills up your stomach. So weirdly, in some weird ways, I was eating less calories than I was before. I was probably eating more volume of food when you added protein and veggies and what that would mean for in your stomach,
Mhm.
and was actually in some ways more satisfied with eating than I had been before. Definitely a lot less cravings. Didn't really crave sugar at all. Craved carbs a little bit from time to time, but not too bad. Yeah, that was very surprising to me. I thought with the amount of weight I was losing that you'd have to be starving to do it, but that wasn't the case.
Uh, you said you're a very busy man. You got a job, your wife, the kid. How did this program change, or how did you balance all those responsibilities, and now you have an additional targets to meet? And how did they help you in your program? It's a
Yeah,
tough thing.
great question. Yeah, a lot of this is just habits. So it's interesting if you look at it. You eat about, if you actually just thought about every meal you have during the week or just jotted down what you ate, 80% of what you eat is probably similar week to week. These are more of the non-occasion, non-exciting meals. What you had for lunch on a Tuesday, what you had for breakfast on a Wednesday. You know, I do go out. I like to go out to dinner. I go out to dinner probably about 3 times a week, but I don't go out to dinner for the other 4 times. Same with lunch, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, but not other four. And there's about 80% of my meals that are going to be the similar type of thing. And so I formed a habit around those meals, not eating the same food each time, which is what I'd actually tried in the past and managed to do pretty consistently. But I am a rare person like that. I can just do the same thing over and over. A lot of people can't. And More the same types of food. So, I needed protein. I'd eat a lot of chicken. Chicken is a lean protein. Fish is a lean protein. Bit of steak in there as well, leaner cuts, but not much pork. That's a fattier protein, or cured meats like chorizo and things as well. So I'd eat a lot of vegetables, as I said, but within that, there's so many meals and different cuisines and different cultures you can have, which keep it exciting. Now, I don't like cooking. I find it to be a chore. So a big thing for me was to use a meal preparation service. We're very lucky, to live in 2025 with this. There are just so many of these things on the market. Um, I I found that keto ones were probably the best because they focused on protein and low calorie, and then you can add the other ingredients. If you need more carbs, add rice to it, or whatever other carb you want. But rice is very easy to prepare, um, and then add your own vegetables. Again, we live in a world of convenience. I use the instant rice that I can put in the microwave for 30 seconds. There's steamed vegetables that come 2 serves in a packet that steam in the microwave and come out really nice. And I'd add all that to my meals. So those habits around eating really helped. But it was also important that I exercise. So I mentioned the strength training in the gym. Well, I did that 3 times a week. And the best way for me to make sure I did it was first thing in the morning, which meant getting up early. I typically get up around 5:30 on a training day, which is early. And I've never thought of myself as a morning person. In fact, for years would have thought that was ridiculous if you'd suggested I'd get up that early. But doing it before work and the distractions means it gets done, and then you can work and not have to stress if something, your day gets a bit busy. You didn't miss your gym session. Also, having a little boy, I think getting up before him is a good way to get something done. Once he's up, there's a lot going on, And I will say, full credit to my wife. She's the primary carer and on maternity leave. She's doing a lot of the heavy lifting around that, and I couldn't have done this without her doing that. So that helped too. I'm not going to pretend that it was me doing it, doing all of that, or even pulling all my weight in that regard. And then another thing I actually didn't mention is for cardio, steps were what I focused on, getting 10,000 steps in a day. That's a lot initially, but you just form habits around it. So go for a walk in the morning, or what my business partner, one of my business partners, he loves walking. He was also doing the program. When we would have certain types of meetings that were more talking related, we'd just walk into it. I've got a desk treadmill as well. Certain activities like checking emails, admin stuff, you can easily do that while walking, and then you get your 10,000 steps. So habits and structure, like everything. And really, obviously, you can't, if you're going to put time into something, you've got to give something else up. I watched quite a bit less TV than I was before. Doesn't mean I couldn't watch what I wanted to watch, but it was interesting. When I reflected on what dropped off, it was that, and I haven't really missed it. Not to say I don't watch TV or I don't like watching TV. I just, you know, the hour that I spent doing the other stuff was an hour less TV at the end of the day, and I didn't really miss that. So yeah, it's interesting when you decide to prioritize something and just focus on doing it. What The unimportant stuff drops away, and you realize you didn't even miss it, whatever that might be in your life.
Oh, it goes back to, I think, what you said earlier, that if you have targets, if you have friends around you, then they keep you going. You don't have to think too much. Then it's the village that raises the boy, kind of a
That's
thing.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. The easiest thing I mentioned, but before that, I got into marathon running. I actually never set out to do marathon running. I just met a guy who became my coach, Shane. I met him socially, and wanted to get fit for hockey season, and he's a very good runner, and he said he was running. He mentioned to me he had a running group, so I rocked up just to get fit for hockey season. But everyone in that group was doing marathons or triathlons or both, and next thing I knew, I was doing a half marathon. Next thing I knew, I was doing a full marathon. And that was just because people around me were doing it and asking me what events I was doing, and I thought, well, I should do an event because everyone else is doing one, and there you go. So it's one of the easiest things in life. That peer pressure, we often talk about it as a negative, but could be a real positive if you use it the right way. And again, we're very lucky. I think we're in a very social age, despite what you might hear as a common perception. That it's so easy to connect with people online, and people are niche groups, and a lot of that translates to local meetups. And if you want to do something, you can find a group and just interact with them. Like I said, this group's in the US, a lot of them, and it's still having the same effect, even though I haven't met most of them face to face. Never met my coach face to face, any of them in space, so it's still good.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. Uh, but okay, now that you have actually lost all those kilos and you are where you wanted to be, how has that changed your life now compared to when you started? What's the difference do you see?
Well, look, it's actually look. There's been a lot of things. One big thing is just a weight off my mind in a funny way. You know how I said I aspired to be healthy and so on. Well, now I actually have benchmarks for what that is, and I know what healthy is and isn't. And it frees me up in many ways around eating. Eating feels a bit less complicated in some ways. In that, the reason fast food and unhealthy food exists is that it's tasty and it's nice to have from time to time. And because I have a way of tracking it, if I want to go have a hamburger tomorrow for lunch, I can do that. I just plan my day around it. Every day I plan my meals.
Oh,
You don't have to do that, but it just allows me that freedom of knowing that I'm getting the nutrients I need, and then freeing up space if I want to. I mentioned it with my birthday last week. I had a big day, ate a lot of meals, ate cake, went out with some friends, had some drinks at night time, a fair few drinks, I'll be honest, and that's okay. I planned that. I banked some calories for a few days, and no big deal. So that's one thing is just actually knowing a health benchmark and now being comfortable that yes, I can fulfill what my promise to myself is health, and hopefully staying healthy for the long term. The other thing, there's been another few interesting things that popped up. Like my energy is higher than it was before. Uh, this type of method translates to other things in your life. Just the way the clarity is, the lessons I've taken from or reminders about if you want to achieve something, how you get clarity by focusing in on a few things. So that's translated to a bit in what I'm doing in my business and a few other things around the place. Another interesting thing that I never thought of, my immune system has improved drastically. And I wasn't someone that got super sick, but I'd get your winter colds and things. Obviously, having a little boy in the house, he does get sick a bit more often as he's building his immune system. My wife has caught a few colds from him as well. Um, I have not. I've had a couple of minor colds, but not missed a day of work, not missed a workout either. And I just use those as tangible things that I can reflect on to say, yeah, haven't really got sick this winter. And yeah, I knew a lot of people got sick this winter and missed a few days of work here and there or whatever it was they're doing. So that was probably a big thing. Um, but yeah, it's probably all that combined. I just feel like I finally kind of found the thing I've been looking for, and now I can manage my health accordingly.
Great, great. Uh, um, what surprised you the most once you became fit? Is there something that, oh, I could have done that, or there it is? That's the light bulb thing once you reach there.
It was actually along the way. A couple of things really surprised me. One, I play field hockey, like I mentioned. Just the improvement to my speed and mobility that came from having less weight on. Sounds obvious when you think about it. You know, if I lost 17 kilos, you imagine picking up a 17-kilo weight on your back while you're playing sport. Yeah, of course you run quicker and feel more energized. So that was a big one. Um, Another interesting thing was just I went down a few sizes in my clothes, and it was just really quite interesting to see what size my really healthy weight is. You know, I hadn't thought of myself as particularly overweight, and yeah, I got a part of doing this too. I'd get DEXA scans to tell me exactly what my body fat was, so I knew. Again, data is important, so you have benchmarks. And I started at 23% body fat, and I was. They say you're officially overweight when you're over 22%. So I was only just nudging there, but I wasn't in an optimized zone. And a good body fat for most men is very different for women. So don't, as I said a few times, this is all about you and your age. Good body fat for middle-aged men, if you want to call us that, is around 15%, or a little bit less depending on where you want to go. And I got down to about 11, and I'm now focusing a bit on strength building, where as you do that, you have to be in a calorie surplus, so you will put some fat back on. So I'll bounce probably between 11 and 15%. And in that zone, your immune system is quite optimal, which I found out after that thing I just mentioned before. So that was also interesting, just that physical change of clothes got smaller, I was lighter, I could move more. Yeah, I go back to looking at the old pair of pants, and they're just fun just to see they don't fit you anymore. They won't even stay up. But I need to throw them out. There's no point in keeping them. I'll be doing that soon. It's time for a spring clean.
Yeah, yeah. It's like almost you're leaving one form and getting into a new form. It's a whole new body, which is
That's
good.
exactly it. Yeah. An interesting thing to see in a quick period of time. That's for sure. Probably another thing that struck me was people's reactions. So, yeah, there's people in your life you don't might not see them every week, maybe every few months, or some people maybe didn't see me until towards the end of my weight loss, and just the shock they'd have of, wow, you've lost so much weight. And because you're living it week to week, you wouldn't really notice, but I lost a lot of fat around my face. I have to go get a new headshot for work for my photo, because the old one just doesn't quite look like me anymore.
That's interesting. So now that you're here, How do you plan to maintaining your health and fitness moving forward? That you will continue doing what the plan said, or are you going to have a few things and you will continue doing them?
Yeah, good question. I think the having benchmarks is very important. So I now know how to figure out how much to eat and what types of food to eat. So that's something I carry with me for the rest of my life. At least in the short term, I'll keep planning my meals day to day. But yeah, you learn. I already starting to get a good feel for looking at stuff and knowing how many calories in certain types of meals and um, how many I need. So that will become something more ingrained over time. The exercise habit's something I've already had. Strength building is a bit of a focus of mine at the moment. So there's a couple of reasons for that. One, if you have more muscle mass, that I said before about the calculator to figure out how many calories you need to burn. There's a strong correlation between how heavy you are and how many calories you need, right? So fat obviously plays into that, but so does muscle. So by having more muscle, I'll need to eat more calories to maintain my weight, which gives me more buffer. You know, we're in a world of abundance of food. So if my maintenance calories are more around 3,000 than 2,000, it just gives me more buffer. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is just that health span idea. So as you get older, you will lose muscle mass, and it becomes very hard at certain ages to put it on. So very important if you're going into your 60s or 70s that you already have a good amount of muscle, because that'll protect you from things like falling and you know you can lose your mobility, you fall, break bones. If that happens to you at older, it happened to my grandmother when she was over 90. Very very hard for her body to heal. So you just need to if you're stronger and more vibrant, you'll have your mobility. You'll be able to keep doing what you want to do in life. So yeah, that's a big focus of mine. Probably be another 18 months before I start capping out on where you get to. Another thing I learned is you can't just put on unlimited muscle, which is kind of obvious. Otherwise, if you train for 20 years, you'd be the Incredible Hulk or something. So most people can do about 2 years gets you probably 80% of you, if you train well, 2 years gets you about 80% of your amount of muscle you would have. The third year probably rounds you out for the last 20%. Well, it's probably not even that. It's probably the last 10%. So I think I'll do my 2 years and see where that leads. And then just probably maintain that habits one form or another.
Oh, best of luck on that. Um,
Thanks.
but from your experience of what you have gone through in the last 6 months, what advice would you give to someone, say someone like me in 40s, who think it's too late now to make a change?
Yeah, good question. In many ways, I think now's a great time to make a change. When you're older, you have um, more confidence and clarity. I think one thing that's very hard with this stuff is there are aesthetics and beauty standards mixed in with it, which is fair enough. It's a society thing, and I will be quite upfront. I also, while health was my primary driver, aesthetics was part of it too. While I made that promise to myself back in my 20s, was I didn't want to be unhealthy. I also didn't want to look a certain way. So that can be hard to navigate in this space. And I think as you're older, you've probably got a bit more perspective around that, or maybe care a bit less about it. Not that you don't care about it, but you care a bit less about it. So you can make a change. I think the tough thing with this is the way we're conditioned for day-to-day life is the reason we're putting the weight on. So you're going to have to make some habitual changes, and it's not easy to cut through the noise and know exactly what to do. So I've spoken about a few things, but I'm no expert in this. I've just been doing this for 6 months. I'm sure if the guys that taught me were listening, there's probably some key things I've missed out just because nuance is important. And bringing all this together at the same time, I think, is key. So you have to eat the right amount, but if you don't exercise as well, you lose too much muscle. And the exercise you're still contributing probably, you're walking 10,000 steps a day, that's 500 calories you burn. If you're training 3 times a week, you're probably, maybe averages out to another 100 odd calories per day. So there's 600 calories that you're burning. That's coming from exercise. So if you're in 1,000 calorie deficit, well, 600 of that was from exercise. So you good idea to be doing that as well. And lots of other things, mental health, doing a lot more walking. I didn't mention that. Just doing more walking gave me more space in my day. My stress levels have been less this year than they have been. Um, Cardiovascular health. And then the strength training benefits around bone density, muscle mass, all those things. So um, my advice to people is to be aware that there's a few things that have to come together. I'd suggest start with the eating, the calorie deficit, the nutrition. Get a filter for that. That's 80% of it. Then once you've got a habit around that, add the strength in. Particularly if you've never done it before, that's obviously going to be a learning curve. And if you try to do everything at once, it's going to overwhelm you. So then add that in, and then I didn't really talk much about it because I don't actually understand the science. I just know the benefit. Blood work optimization is important. So, things like if your cortisol's elevated and you're having problems with insulin, that will start affecting your ability to lose weight. Good to have somebody do some analysis on that for you and recommend supplements. I that I've seen a lot of positive changes in my blood work from that, and I'm not sure how much that would have held me back if I didn't do it. That's a tough one because I have to say the medical industry is very good at keeping us alive, but their standards are very much around medical issues. So you might not about health optimization. So you go to your doctor for a blood test, they look at the results from a medical point of view. Well, Adam, is there anything that's going to lead to an immediate medical issue here? No. So nothing more they'll recommend. But there was a lot that wasn't right with me for health optimization. And had I continued on that path, maybe in 10 years' time, I would have had a medical issue, diabetes, or my cholesterol was high, heart attacks, whatever it might have been. So I find I I'd found trouble finding a good person for that, but your naturopaths and those sorts of people can be quite good, but there is a lot of noise in that space as well. So you've got to pick that person who's focused in on what you want to do. There's a naturopath for fertility. There's a naturopath for sleep. But if you're doing it for weight loss, try and just find someone who does the blood work for weight loss. Um, the challenge in this space in my mind is putting it all together. I worked with the program for that reason, so they put it together for me. If you want to do this on your own, I reckon start with the weight loss, then do the strength and do the blood work and see what happens. And you're going to just have to juggle that.
You refer to the stress around that people, what people think and all that as well. And by the time when I read your story, I also read a story about that Borat.
Oh
He
yes,
also
Borat.
transformed.
Yes.
He also transformed himself. And then there was an article that women don't find these transformations very uh, positively. What do you think?
Yes. Yeah. So that article, I think the headline was basically saying that this guy, the guy who played Borat, Sacha Baron Cohen, I believe that's his actual name, got divorced from his wife, separated, whatever it is. And the article was implying he went on a health kick and was putting muscle and losing weight. I think that was probably more for a movie role he's doing, but it implied he did it for aesthetic reasons. And the female columnist wrote an opinion piece saying that she was a middle-aged woman and that she actually found it very unattractive at that age for a man to be doing it, and really had a go at him about it. Look, what do I think about that? Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. It's an opinion piece, so I take it with a grain of salt that it's not easy to write a column every week, and negative press is attractive, but definitely the tall poppy syndrome type idea exists in every aspect of your life. So if you go do something that is a bit outside the norm, and things that some people might want to do but can't do. Jealousy can always come in a bit, or envy, and yeah, some people might not like that, and that's okay. I've learned in life I have a high achieving streak in certain areas, so I do quite well in certain areas. And I don't mind if somebody doesn't like it. Yeah, it could hurt your ego if they're a bit outward to you on that, but that's their problem at the end of the day. And I think there's lessons both ways that if you're the one aspiring to something, you have to learn to block out noise. And I've formed a habit around that where I wasn't posting, I posted about my result when I got to the end. I don't love the limelight in that way, but I only got into what I got into because my friend Neil did the same post. So I felt that was important for me to share. And also, it was nice to show off a bit because I did something interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And but I find it's always important when I'm reaching like that and maybe I'm stumbling my way through it initially is to be selective about who I share it with so that I'm not overly influenced by negative people and knock me off my path. And also, we're all guilty of this ourselves too. When I find myself being the negative person, even if it's just internally, not hopefully I'm not putting someone down externally. That sometimes you do that too. We're all human. Um, it's always a good point if you catch yourself doing it, just to reflect on why. And maybe there is some envy. Envy is a good thing if you pay attention to it because it's guiding you towards something that you desire where you may not have accepted that yet. So, if that lady, if it was a genuine article, I'd suggest maybe to her that she actually is craving a bit of a fitness journey and maybe she should do what he did. But yeah, obviously I don't know who she is, so that's probably, and she's probably never going to hear this. So yeah, I'm sure she'll work it out.
Yeah, that's a very interesting take on that article. That it's you can envy something, but you can turn it into a positive way. That you realize that this is what you are aspiring for internally. So you might actually use this opportunity to achieve that in yourself instead of thinking
Yeah,
that someone else
I
has got
think
this.
I think that's where the emotional envy comes from. If you're honest and you recognise it is envy, is I wish I had that, but I feel uncomfortable, so I'd rather tear that person down and try and convince myself I don't want it or it's not worth having. And we all do it all the time. I definitely notice myself doing it, but then I reflect, well, why? And usually when I reflect on that, I actually end up accepting that I probably am. It turns more into admiration of, well, that person's doing that thing and good on them. And if I really want it, maybe I'll try and find out how they did it.
Good. We are almost near the closing. So, is there anything like additional that you want to share that we might not have covered in this conversation?
No, I really appreciate sharing what I've been up to. I hope I've been able to share things that are of benefit to people. And I think maybe just to summarize that if I had to sell someone in a nutshell, the game changer of this, it is definitely metrics, calorie counting, and knowing those macronutrients. That's a big piece of this. That won't get you to fully optimize health, but it will get you, as in where I got to, but that'll get you very far and it'll at least keep you in a healthy range. So if you're overweight, you should be able to get back to normal range if you just learn how to eat well. And the uncomfortable part is, yes, there's going to have to be some structure in your life, some structure to your eating. You're going to have to choose not to eat certain things. But while that feels restrictive, the reality is that'll free you up more than you ever felt before. When I eat bad food, if you want to call it that, I really enjoy it now because I plan to go eat a slice of cheesecake and I don't have to stress that I'm not getting fat by eating it because I planned it. Now I can just sit there and really enjoy it rather than eat it, feel guilty, worry the next day what I might eat, maybe go into a spiral, eat more bad food the next day. All these things that can happen if you're not thinking about and controlling what you're doing. So yeah, that's probably my parting words of wisdom.
Oh, actually, I'm very surprised and actually inspired by that take that we might eat something and feel guilty later. But now that you have planned it in your diet plan, you are comfortable. You already discounted that thing. You're never guilty. So your
Yeah,
mental health is better.
yeah.
Your fooding
Well,
habit
I've
is
got
better.
I'm due to. We're recording this at night time. I'm due to about to go out to dinner, and I've got myself about 1,200 calories free for the day. I don't think I want a burger tonight. I'm not feeling it, but if I did, I'd go eat one. So who knows? If I might be about to do it. It's certainly not all about chicken and broccoli, and that's it for the rest of your life. There's a lot of flexibility you can have.
Yep. On that positive note and a positive thing, thank you, Adam, for sharing your story and sharing your insights. Like that's personal insights that someone can, I think, benefit from, and I've benefited taking that positive twist on something which might be affecting me negatively as well. Envy, guilt, all those things. So thank you for that. Thank you again.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you
Uh,
for inviting me as a guest, and hopefully sharing has helped people out. So yeah,
sure.
very happy to be here.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.